So I'll make this as a statement, not against Oklahoma or Brent Venables. Has nothing to do. It's just the business of college football. It's all about college football. So we've got Brent Venables here in the last couple of days signing a 6-year contract extension, $51.6 million. That's $8.5 million per season. So the deal, Parker, would be that he's into a 6-year contract. Let's say, Sooner fans, forgive me, 8-4, 7-5, and let's say the third year he's on a hot seat, he loses his job. They've got a big buyout on their hands. If he succeeds, they're probably tearing this thing up in 2 or 3 years anyway, and jacking him up with Kirby Smart at $13 million. That pay scale is obviously on the inflation scale, just like everything else. So again, this is not a statement against Oklahoma or Brent Venables. It's more about just the way business is done in college football. You got to retain your coach. You got to show that he's going to be there for a while. But is there anything nuanced to this that is different to the OU Venables equation of why it was done now?
Well, as I do with many things that happen at Oklahoma and across the rest of the college football world, Mark, I want to try to look at this through the lens of recruiting, because I think it's pretty well known around these parts, and you don't even necessarily have to be in the Oklahoma camp to understand that Brent Venables is committed to being at Oklahoma for the long haul. He wants, I think ideally, and he hasn't said this, but in so many words, he has hinted at the fact that he would like this to be his only head coaching job. And he would like to coach Oklahoma well into not only the SEC transition, but beyond. And so Brent Venables wants to be here. Oklahoma wants him here in Norman, Oklahoma. And so there's a commitment on both sides. And it's important to clarify. It's not a 6-year extension. It's a 2-year extension of his previous contract. So that takes it 6 more years from where we sit today through the 2029 season. But previously his contract ran through 2027. Now it runs through 2029. So $400,000 raise. So you can basically chalk that up. That's an inflation raise. But as I see it, and as I look at it through the lens of recruiting, this is an extra measure of stability that I think is afforded to recruits and their parents and their extended families. Whenever they come to Oklahoma, they have the assurance that Brent Venables is going to be at Oklahoma for the entirety of their tenure there. And that's an important thing to be able to sell to recruits, is if you're Brent Venables and you have a kid walking in your office, let's say this past weekend, they had their big recruiting weekend, right? And there are going to be players, and they're especially parents, that ask about your contract situation, your level of satisfaction. Hey, if we commit to the University of Oklahoma, can we count on the fact that you're going to be here to see my son's collegiate career through, and that you're going to be there to coach him every step of the way? And if your contract only runs through 2027, well, you can't make that promise. If your contract runs through 2029, you can. And so I think this is a reflection. I think what this shows, what this reflects on both ends, is that Brent Venables is committed to be at Oklahoma in the long haul. Oklahoma is committed to everything that Brent Venables has cultivated foundationally, culturally. They believe they have the right formula heading into the SEC. And they don't want there to be any question in the minds of recruits who travel to Norman and consider the University of Oklahoma as an option for their matriculation. They don't want there to be any question in those kids' minds that if they come to Oklahoma, they're not going to have to worry about getting caught up in the coaching carousel, which is something, we see it every offseason, Mark. There are major coaching moves. There are assistants that take bigger jobs. There are head coaches that uproot their entire staff and take them with them to other places. See Jed Fish at Washington, for instance. And so I think what this reflects is that everybody at the administrative level and in the Switzer Center at the University of Oklahoma believes that this is going to work. There's a blueprint here. We have our guy. Our guy doesn't want to go anywhere. And we don't want anybody that walks in here to have any misconceptions about what the future of Oklahoma football looks like if they want to be a part of it.
All good points. 2 assistants, DeMarco Murray and Miguel Chavis, also given contract extensions. Were they just due, or is that a reward for a job well done?
It's a little bit of both. I think obviously, you look at the work that this Oklahoma staff is doing right now, on the whole, whether it's recruiting or whether it's development. Everybody deserves a pat on the back for a job well done. I don't think there's any assistant coach on Oklahoma's staff that hasn't pulled their weight through 2 years of the Venables era. And granted, it hasn't been a smashing success yet. 6-7 in year one, 10-3 in year two, but it was never going to be an overnight fix at Oklahoma with the hand that Lincoln Riley left for Brent Venables on his way out the door. And so I think there is an acknowledgement, and this kind of goes back to the Venables contract, right? This thing is headed in the right direction. It's not there are no microwave solutions in college football. There are certainly instances where a coach like Sonny Dykes, right, has an amazing year out of nowhere. First year at TCU, they go play for the national championship, and then what happens? The crash and burn comes the following year. So it's very, very difficult to have microwave success in college football. What you have to do is you have to lay the foundation. You have to reshape the culture. You have to establish your vision. And then you have to really from there just build and build and build and build towards a program, and not just a team. Because you think about it, a team is 1 year. A program is broader than just one season. If you want to build a championship program and not just a championship team, you got to take steps along the way. You can't take one giant step. You got to take a bunch of small steps. And so what I perceive at Oklahoma is that all of these assistants are satisfied where they're at as of right now. And who knows, maybe a big time coordinator gig or even a head coaching gig comes up for one of them this offseason. You can never rule that out these days. But there's a lot of camaraderie within that building and a lot of belief that, hey, if we stick together, if we band together, as long as we're in it, not necessarily for a decade, but if we're in it together for several years at Oklahoma, we have the opportunity to build something and be part of something that's really cool and really unique across the landscape of college football, because rare are the staffs these days, especially at this level, Mark, that can stick together for that long.
Absolutely. Nomadic industry, no doubt. It always has been, and even more so now than it's ever been.